Okay, we're back, and I got this Ashun or Ashlun. May have gotten rid of what it says on there, or you can't see it exactly, but it's a 30 or 40 tooth, carbide tooth, 14-inch diameter, like circular saw blade, and that's just cutting through all this like butter. And I didn't know what was going to be in here. This is 2x4 white lumber joists up and off of the dirt floor, which somebody laid plastic on first, and there was some insulation in here, but as you might imagine, it's just a mouse condominium. Basically, it's all chewed up insulation. There's some mouse carcasses and stuff, so this is going to be easy to saw up and gut from the center out to the edges. We'll get the edges out. Everything's coming out in these little bite-size 1x2s or 2x2s. Ed's loading up his trailer back here. Yeah, perfect size for the window. And then later today, if I can get there, we've got to carve up the garage floor. I'll switch, obviously, to a diamond blade, and we'll go out. Now, I want to make sidewalk pavers out of this, because if you look, it's older, but I don't think it's the age of the house. And I'm seeing, like, what is it about it? Something, how do I explain? It just looks like it was poured up here more recently than the age of this home. And that, you know what, the drain that comes out here from the floor drain is plastic, so I'm fairly certain that it is. Anyway, it's in relatively good shape. And so we'll come up with the math here to make as many of the same width sidewalk pavers out of it, and we'll stack them out front here, but I'm going to try and load those out and take them back to the shop and build something with them. That skid steer showing up tomorrow. We'll get the posts and piers out. We'll get the bricks and stuff out. And great work day today. In fact, it's maybe a little warmer than I'd like, but this is like original door, I think, to this house. So we'll try and clean him up and do something with it. And so we'll come back and look here and see where I can get. We also did a bunch of calling. We've got 811 for telling them we're going to dig, and they'll mark all the lines. We had to set up the cutting off of the gas lines, which I'll show you over here. I've said it before, but the meter is inside the foundation on this house, which is an old school way of doing it. You can't get a reading without getting in here. I guess you can't see it. Anyway, it's here on the wall. And so I believe they'll come or I know they're going to come and take this meter away. I think there's isolation valves here. I wish there was light. But they'll probably shut it off, isolate it, take it away, and then there'll be pressure on out to the road still, but then we've got an order in to have them come and turn us off at the road, so all the lines there are dead for us. And even with the meter off, I'll know that the house is dead, so I can do things like I could have anyway, but disconnect the furnace and hot water tank, because they have isolation valves, in theory, I guess. I just assume, but I assume they do. And we'll get those out through the wall here once we dig down, once the skid steer's here tomorrow. So everything else is essentially just down to the temporary bearing walls for safety, what was left of the middle wall for safety again on that post. And yeah, I showed you all this. Chris and I got that stuff out of here. Gotta get the ducts and stuff down, but I'm gonna get back to this room and see if I can't gut this floor out of here today. Okay, so there you go. It ended up just being, I mean, this is where the framing was lying. So it was lying right on the ground. It's like they trenched along to set each stick in and relied on the dirt to support. Because I was wondering, like, how the 2x4s, they were out in space in a few areas here, and like, what exactly were they? It's just basically a wall laying on the dirt floor down here, and I guess probably dirt scraped around to make it pseudo level. But I'm seeing here moisture, right? And every once in a while there's a drip here from this water line that was it's been undisturbed. Where is it? Can't see it. It's this copper line, but he's wet. Maybe if we wait a second, it's not exciting. But anyway, that was all rotten there too, the framing. And so that's just been dripping very slowly in that closet onto the linoleum floor, being lost in the shuffle, and just soaking and rotting that area. And that's water from inside the house, from the systems. Obviously the outside is from outside the house, or the stuff that's working on the outside wall. So in every way here we had moisture problems. And in every location you're growing mold with that. Now, on top of the plastic, which is the nicest feature of this plastic that someone put down, is that I can make a big dirty diaper of it here with the insulation and the wood and rotten lumber and debris on top, and really underneath is just dirt. So once again, we're trying to separate that because that can be loaded out to one location and the organic material to another. That's not going to make it out the window or up the stairs, and so when we come in here tomorrow or the next day, I'll be able to drag it out, put it in the bucket on the skid steer, and load it out that way. Ed's making use of his gas cooking right now to do some fabric dyeing for a project. Yeah.
We start with this.
Yeah.
We use poly dye, and we end up with
You're
this.
coloring solid plastic. I thought you were coloring fabric material. Okay, right.
And that way I don't have to worry about the colors of the lights
Right.
in the wingtip
It's in
being
there.
correct, because this will tone it.
So is that RIT, like synthetic fabric dye? Or, okay.
I dye poly.
Okay.
Really nice stuff if you have polyester.
So you're
if you
making
want
a
color plastic.
tinted lens. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Sweet.
We use the same process for like sailplanes if you want to tint the canopies.
Yeah. Yeah, because the fibers themselves are made of the same plastic, so you can dye a lot of textiles, but you can also dye solid chunks. Very cool. Very cool. Now, last thing here is these steps are bracketed on. I'm going to take the brackets off, move the steps out of the way. And then how to slice up this floor. We got it down to being clean. I got a chalk line to snap. And a lot of folks, you know, like I said, initially I measured its width. And it's within an inch at the ends, but it's an inch narrower in the middle. And then I'm looking at these nice troweled relief. There's a name for it that I can't think of right now. Anyway, expansion joints. And so they're a nice finished outside corner, kind of rounded or whatever. And so you don't want, if the math doesn't work out correctly, you don't want that left on the one edge or the other edge of a paver or anything like that. And they're relatively straight, but they're not in here. You know, the distance of this one to that wall at one end and in the middle and over there is different by an inch or so. And same then in this way. So what are you going to do, Chezzy? I'm essentially going to start on this long one, and I'm going to measure over the width of the pavers that we want to create. And we'll either get 2 courses or 3 out of this side. Probably only get 2 out of this side. And we'll make those marks here, and then we'll measure off that line down there however many times again, and we'll measure off of it in both ways. And then we'll snap between those with chalk, and we'll cut those, and then one side of all of the pieces that, or these pieces that we make that are, you know, adjacent to this here, will have that nice finished edge on them, and they'll all be the same width. And we were always going to have some waste or something anyway here, because it's not going to necessarily divide out perfectly, but that waste can be around the outside. And then I can come in over here and slice up this. This is a nice segment here too, and it looks like it's got a bit of a division there. So I might cut him in half and try to pick this one out. And this might be a stem wall. I don't know why this is here, and then there's block out there. I thought there might be a block wall just on the slab on grade, but this makes me wonder if there isn't some kind of stem wall. I don't know. Anyway, I got to get through him, but then I can get in here and pick these up from the middle out to the outside, and then the last thing, you know, basically the waste can sit at the outside undisturbed, however it's relative to this short wall, all until we take the structure up and away, and then that could be removed quick with my skid steer. You know, he's already compromised and stuff too. But anyway, we just harvest what we want out of the center here and leave the rest of it undisturbed, which is, I think, the plan for tomorrow, as well as bringing the skid steer over, as well as getting a different battery for the skid steer, creeping over with the skid steer on the trailer with that truck, trying to boil over, and then with the empty trailer, put the posts and piers and the guts of that floor from that room downstairs into that trailer and sneak that to the dump without boiling over or boiling over on the way back. So there goes the healthy guy. How you doing, healthy guy? Healthy person? Okay, that's the plan. End of the day today. See y'all tomorrow. Well, we got the posts pulled out and pulled the first pier, but I don't know what you call this, if it was a mistake or a blowout. I don't know, it's all one piece. But this was only a foot or so underground, and so this ground beneath this here is moist and freezes and it swells, and it's just all the time heaving that. I know it seems like when you have a pier that goes all the way down below where it actually freezes, then the levels around the upper part can expand and contract and freeze, but they can't actually pick up on the sides because the sides are smooth of this. You have to be underneath the end of it, or in a case like this, if you're underneath a shelf or any other feature like that, anything that would constitute like an undercut in terms of casting and in mold making, anything that would constitute a lock would also cause this thing to rise and heave. So we'll see what else is going on in here. Well, we're working on carving up this garage slab. I snapped lines in chalk, the most permanent chalk, but the blade throwing the water actually makes like a water blade right where you're trying to cut. So it's hard to keep that for any length of time. So I was just real careful to drag a shallow line early, right on top of the chalk. Also moving my body, everything about what I'm doing as smooth and careful as possible to get a nice straight line. It's got a little wiggle in it, but the wiggle actually happens over this length. And all in all, these are going to be cut into little pieces and set back together again, and the grass is going to grow over the sides a little bit. So we'll do everything that we can to be perfect here, but it's not going to be the end of the world if they're a little bit wiggly. You can see how, based on the troweled expansion joint or relief, that we're this out of square from that size all the way down to basically a knife down here, maybe like 1 inch or something, which is no problem, but we won't be trimming that off in here because we can't get the saw that tight. So I'm going to do these 2 long cuts. I'm going to resaw or fully cut through this trowel line, which should go a little easier, and then I'm just going to cut this length right in half, same down here, right in half, and that'll make 4, 8, 16 squares, or 16 pieces about the same size. They're 36 inches wide because that's what I've already got going for sidewalk where they're going. It's a good size in general. The overall length of them, I don't even know what that'll be. It'll just all be the same size, and it's going to maximize because this was, I see now that I'm looking at this, I can see the expansion joint at the wall. This material here, so that was poured to the wall there. It's, I can see it there now that I'm looking. So these slabs end and do not go underneath. It was so close to perfectly 1 block thick without looking real close at it. I didn't know if it was under there. So since it's not under there, what I'm saying is we'll take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of the center, and then we'll just take the outside pieces away, and whether we have to remeasure or not, I was sure that I could get the pieces that I want by the line over there, and either it'll be there later or we'll put a new one on them, but we'll cut that off once they're free and clear, and then all the pieces will be the same size, and then we're going to end up with a foot. This is our last mark here. A foot or whatever the transition is over on this side, left over, and we'll get those front pieces out either in 2 or in 4 pieces, depending on what they look like when I get in there. I'm going to try a time lapse here. So often I think about doing a time lapse for what I'm doing, but right in the middle of it I run away for an hour to get something, and it just doesn't make any sense. But I think I'm going to be here until this has been cut, so we'll set it up and try to do that, or we won't, and there is no. So yesterday we got this far where all of these longer passes have been made. I was thinking it'd be easier down in this groove. It was, I didn't need to snap a line, so there's that aspect. I didn't need to carefully stay on it to the best of my ability, although I still put effort into staying in there. It was a bit of a lead, which was nice. But honestly, cutting through this area was just as tough and took just as long as the other areas here. And we did this last one against the wall over here. Again, that one is so tight we can't get the saw in there, so it'll just be something we trim off those pieces. Now I'm essentially going to resaw this one, which I expect to take a bit of time. And then we're just looking for the middle of the overall length on this side and the middle of the overall length on that side. We'll snap a line. We'll do the same thing over here. They may be slightly different or longer or anything, etc. However, just a nice way, they'll be, if they're a little bit different, they'll be all as close as you can get while maximizing what we get for total length here. This is like 17 feet overall, so there's probably, when you get all done, if I end up trimming off 3 inches of all, these 4 pieces, that's a whole foot or something that we're going to miss after I cut those off of there. I don't know why right now it looks like, because it's doubled. 6 inches over here and 6 inches over there. So anyway, 65 feet of usable sidewalk here when we get all done, which is going to be cool. And it'll be our choice whether you cut this entryway thing right on its joint, and if I were to cut it again here and there, I'd have 2 more pieces that could get me, they're like 1.5 feet, so you get 3 more feet of sidewalk, short runs of it or whatever, and discard the side pieces. So I'm not sure whether, if I do end up cutting them in half to manage them, I'll probably do that, because I don't think that there's anything that usable about them in other ways. Ed was hoping to maybe put them out as stair surfaces, steps to the front, but the bottom has been cast against the ground, so it's going to be uneven to that extent and have stone sticking down from it. And you really want one monolithic cast stairway for here for a bunch of different reasons, because, you know, again, moisture, frost heaving, and if it's just sitting there, they're going to migrate all around. It's not really that professional. And furthermore, it may not be 2 steps down to the ground anymore. All of this is going to change in terms of, you know, where things land. We may not shoot to put the surface of the garage floor right back in underneath the bottom of the garage wall necessarily. It may hang out in space. There may be a gap here over to where the foundation starts and is taller, and everything may need to be just extended down a bit and slide the door down. It might be nice because right now the top of the door opening is practically, well, I guess it's just a touch below the overhang here. But it'd be nice to have a little more clearance in that way, so you could just plane that down. And this is all just flashed. And so it's really just a matter of remaking a few pieces of flashing and just buttoning it back up. Whoa, electrical cord. All right, then we'll snap these lines and saw, and we'll get back to pulling the pieces out. Well, that was like a piece of cake. Now, these two outer pieces... excuse me, these two outer pieces came out. They were just a little bit above the asphalt on the outer end, so I got a fork underneath them, flipped it up, got over underneath it, took them over and set them over there on stickers or blocks or whatever you want to call them. Now this is a stem wall, which means there must be a concrete stem wall around this whole thing. And maybe this was on it. I don't really know. There's really no chance this was lifted up a block height. So then they plan to do one concrete block on top of a cast concrete stem wall. Or maybe just the threshold is. Anyway, it goes down, seems like. I'm not really sure, because this looks like it here. But I tried lifting like in there, and nothing was moving. Now there was rebar in here, and I had cut it off. See, it's over here with the wet saw pass. So that made it kind of handy to break that out ultimately with a demo hammer. Just enough to get underneath the edge of this piece of concrete in here. But that measures out at 6 inches thick, which is wildly more than necessary in here. But regardless, that's what's in here, it looks like. So now, I thought I only needed to get this much out and get in this much, and then I could start working my way all around. But really, I'd like to at least get this much out, this much more here. So I'm going to break that over to there, and then at least take these 8 pieces out of the center, and then maybe I could start working to the side when I have a little bit of breathing room. Things are kind of tight here. So I will say that when I was talking about laying these out and just going to the middle of this distance and the middle of that distance and snapping a line, I immediately changed my mind and decided to do an equal distance. I basically found out I did get that center line of the 2 ends, but then the smaller dimension is what I chose to go over in both cases and snapped a line between them. I also put that dimension here in the middle to see that the line, the chalk line, would pull through it, so that I could be sure that this was a straight line and not concave or acute or what's the opposite of acute? Anyway, I wanted to make sure it was straight. So what we end up with is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 theoretically square pieces, and then 8 more with 3 square sides and a weird 4th side on both ends of it. But then again, we have this piece that has to come off in the end, so those 4 pieces will have to have a second side that needs to be trimmed. I basically just wanted to get them as square as I could while we were in here, as well as thinking about how to get them out of here quickly. And so we'll have some ready to rock and roll and install, and we'll have some that need a little touching up. But more importantly today, I want to get through the breaking that I need to do on a half-day rental with him, and then pick these crazy thick pieces out, and we'll just stack them up over there. Maybe I'll get a little time lapse of that. We'll see. What the heck?
Oop, watch out for that hole. Well, as you can see, these pieces came right out, no problem. I did get a flat and then roll over this piece of concrete that's still a piece of the foundation and bent my wheel because I didn't have the protection of an inflated tire. So now I've got a flat and a bent wheel. It's okay, I needed new tires for that thing anyway. It just forced my hand, so I didn't end up getting the last 4 little slab pieces out because I was rolling around on a flat tire. But we got the major pieces out and we wrapped them up with some danger tape because it's just an attractive nuisance. Actually, this thing too for little kids, grandkids, and that should be climbing on this type of thing. It means people take this stuff for granted, but it can shift and fall and kill you, break your leg, maim you for life. So it's just not a climbing tower. I like to do what I can to make that obvious. I keep that caution tape on hand, danger tape. I even do that with the set and stuff every year because you got high schoolers and stuff horsing around, different things. And we had somebody get hurt recently on set a couple years ago. So everywhere you go, there are dangers. Now we're just down to pulling the ductwork and what's the other thing? Oh, then we get the laundry machines, hot water tank, and furnace out. We've got a couple extra weeks now before we can get started lifting at least, and so I'm not in that big of a hurry. I will get new tires mounted and the wheel straightened out, and then get back. I got to dig into the basement to get to all that stuff, which is the thing. So hopefully we get this skid steer fixed in the next few days, and then we can get back to work. We'll see ya.